Okay, so now you can see I've got the tail servo mounts on, and these mounts I found in the same package as tail servo linkage. Then I've also got the mount for my horizontal stabilizer, and this was in the package with my night head bars. So what I do is I take the boom and I usually stick a piece of wire through the boom and then tie it to the tail belt and then just pull the belt through the boom. Okay, got a piece of wire. Now all I'm going to do is I'm just going to slide it down through my tail boom. Okay, and I'm going to wrap it around my belt. And the cool thing about a tail boom this small is you don't actually have to tie the wire. You can just kind of fold it over itself and stick it right back up in the boom. And I want to kind of make sure that the belt's not twisted or anything as I'm pulling it through. I'm just going to go ahead and pull the belt through and slide the tail boom up into the back of the frame of the helicopter. And I'm going to try to slide it down there kind of far so I can get a good amount of belt out of the back there. So now I'll go ahead and take my tail assembly apart, and you got 5 screws. 2 there, 1 over here, 1 over there, and then you got 1 up here for this black pulley. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this tail box apart real quick, and then I'm going to get ready to put it on here. Okay, so I took the tail box apart, and like I said, it's 4 screws, and then there's a 5th one that holds this little black pulley on here. And when you take this off, careful, because there's a bearing in there that it falls out. It's not glued in place or anything, it just kind of sits there. So that bearing can pop out, so just be careful that you don't lose that. So before I put the tail box on, I do need to make sure that I've got the tail belt, make sure it's not twisted in here in the boom, and make sure everything's moving in the right direction. So because there's not a lot of the belt to hold on to back here, I usually take a screwdriver or a pen and just kind of slip it through there and use that to turn the pulley to see if my to turn the belt rather to see if my belt is moving in the right direction. Now, if the belt was twisted around either or, you'll actually feel the teeth of the belt rubbing on each other, and the main gear won't move the same direction you're moving the belt. Okay, and once you're sure you got the belt going in the right direction, you want to make a quarter turn counterclockwise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it and I'm going to turn it up. See, that went up. So now I can go ahead and install the tail box. Now when you install the tail box, you need to make sure you get this little pulley back on there, and you got to put the pulley in place before you bolt everything together. So that can be kind of tricky. I usually lay the helicopter on its side to do this, but I'm going to go through and just put everything back on there. And like I said, you got to make sure you get that little black pulley in place before you bolt this together. So I'm going to do that real quick and then I'll come back. Okay, I've got the tail box all assembled there, and you can see when I spin my main gear, it rotates the tail blade assembly back up into the rotor wash. Alright, so now it's pretty much all assembled, just a couple final things. Main blades obviously mount on here. Your tail fins, now you can see here there's 3 fins, and what it is, this obviously your vertical fin. This one is made to mount right here on the side. It's kind of weird, so if you want to put that on, that's fine, you don't have to. Horizontal fin, obviously your tail blades, tail boom supports, they just have these little white caps. Slide them on the end and then bolt them in place. So I'm going to do that. Oh, one other thing, the canopy mounts, I don't know if you can really see it, there is these little gray plastic pieces, and they have a screw goes through them, and they are the canopy mounts. But I'll talk about that here in a second. I'm going to go ahead and put this final stuff on here, and I will be right back. Well, there it is, all assembled. You know, I got to go through and install the electronics and then do some final tweaking, but for the most part, you know, that's just how to build this little kit. And now I just go through the electronics that I'm planning on using on this. Now, I want to keep this as cheap as I can. You know, it's a $20 kit. I don't want to go putting, you know, $150 worth of electronics on it. So, my radio system is going to be eSky 2.4 gigahertz transmitter. This actually came from my buddy Wayne. I'm going to be using an eSky head holding gyro. I'm going to be using a Hobby King 18 to 20 amp super simple ESC. I'm going to be using a Turnigy 7.4 volt 800 milliamp battery. And for motor, this is the ELE Firefox motor. This was in the spare parts section for this helicopter on the Hobby City website. Good little motor. Now, the one thing about this is the shaft, you're going to have to cut that off like a little rotary tool. And I use the stock pinion, and it's a press-on pinion, to where what I did is I just put the pinion on the ground, took my motor, and gently tapped it down onto the pinion, and because you can tap right on the shaft, so you won't damage the motor. But that's the easy way to install it. So that was what I used. And the servos, I'm going to use the Turnigy 9-gram economy servos. These are the $1.99 ones. Now, these are bigger than what you should be using for this kit. You're supposed to use really small servos, but since I'm going to go with these just normal, micro servos, the 9-gram ones, I did have to modify my frame, and I'll talk about that here in a second. Okay, so like I was mentioning, this kit is meant for a really small servo, but because I wanted to keep it cheap, these Tower Pro servos, which are $1.99, these are the cheapest ones you can get. I wanted to use these, which did require a little bit of cutting of the frame. You see here, I did have to open it up quite a bit to be able to stick these servos in here, but like I said, now they'll fit in there. Now another thing about this, and this is what I was going to mention earlier about the canopy, with the 9-gram servos on this kit, you can't use the stock canopy mounts. They don't work. So what I did was, taking a cue from the Honeybee, I drilled a small hole straight through the back of the frame. It's a little rod. I think it might have actually been from the Honeybee. And if I can get it back through, there we go. And then that way, I was able to put my canopy further apart to fit around the servos. Because like I said, these servos, they're big for this kit. So it's not meant to have it, so that's why I had to do that little modification with the canopy. Not like that was a big thing. And I had to put new holes on it from the stock holes there. So, but that was just what I wanted to mention about the servos. One other final thing I'll mention about this. This kit is really cool because you can mount the motor here in the front, or you can mount it in the back. It's got two mounting options for the motor. It's pretty cool. Yeah, see, you can see it right underneath there. So just a little cool thing about this. So I'm going to come back in a second, but I just wanted to show you the basic assembly of this kit. I'm not going to go through the electronics installation just because I like this kit, but I don't want to recommend you buy it just because the HK250 for $10 more is much nicer and easier to get parts for. But I still like this kit. This was $20. If you're lucky enough to get one of these when Hobby City was selling them for $20, you'll understand why it's a nice little kit for $20. So.